because I'm an intuitive painter and I channel and images that people come to me. So that's how you want to paint. That's how you want to do your art. So that's how I start. I want to say a lot about. It's got to be. It's private for me too. I don't like to say who's appearing to me, who's this painting that I'm doing, this image portrait, is going to be oil, and then right now I'm using, you guys, Schwartz Black Faber-Castell oil based. It's my favorites because this is going to be an oil based painting, oil painting. You could use anything you want for your under drawings. You know, as far as technique, when you're looking at yourself in the basics, and it's simple. You want to look at your shapes, your basic shapes. You know, I start with a circle here for the head, and as I do these shapes, another important thing is my pencil sharpener, right? So, you guys, there's some simple secret recipes here that, you know, your electric pencil sharpener or your battery operated pencil sharpener, it's going to be a lifesaver for you. The most important thing is to start to get a silhouette, a structure, a scaffold of your piece. To be honest, somebody like me, I'm not very technical. But like even somebody like me who doesn't like to be technical, you know, you start with the armature of the body, right? So, you know, it's important to study anatomy if you're doing portrait work. If you're working doing portrait art in any form. I enjoy doing pop surrealist art, but I started off like this painting or drawing. This is a Conte charcoal of something I did in high school, in my first portraiture class that I did 10 billion years ago when I was in high school. You know what I mean? And I like looking at this because it's just memorizing the face, understanding the face is a key component to portrait art. You know, I was at Portrait Museum in London this past week with a friend of mine who was also inspired by and an artist herself by the Portrait Museum, inspired by it. And I really appreciate that there's a museum in London that's just so respected based on portraiture art, because, you know, I myself am a portrait artist by trade, by hobby, by passion, by everything you can think of, you know. And as an astrologer, I don't know if you guys know, but I've become a professional astrologer in the last 4 or 5 years. I've been studying it at Kepler University. Shout out, you know, to get my diploma out there. Shout out to anybody who's interested, any artists but just such an important aspect of all of this as an artist, is knowing your astrological components, and the astrological components of not only ourselves, our natal charts, but as also the art that you create when you're painting it, when those astrological components, how it infuse your energy in your art. I mean, think about how the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Sumerians and these ancient cultures with the best artwork in the world, bar none, right? The Renaissance time, right? Leonardo da Vinci and all of these cool cats of the past. What were they doing? They knew everything about astrology, you know? So, you know, a figure drawing teacher would tell you to finish the whole entire armature before you continue on, but I don't follow the rules, obviously, which is why a lot of people have given me a lot of grief in my life. You know, and then later, by the way, getting criticized by some other artists saying I'm not a real fine artist, I'm an illustrator. By the way, pop surrealism is fine arts, it's not illustration. So those of you who may not be familiar with that type of art, which is, you know, a lot of us follow that or are those types of artists on Instagram. But, you know, for those of you who are just starting on your art journey, just remember, you guys, remember the shapes. Remember the shapes. I'm going to show you. See, look at what I'm doing here. Do you see? See, let me see. Can I flip it? No. See, do you see how the shapes are? Do you see how I draw her breast? This is her rib cage. As I go down. So as I go down, I intuitively find the movement, you know. I'm trying not to, you know, force and restrict myself, because that's what illustration does. This is the difference between that, right? And not even in that, like, what, you know. Who is anybody to tell us what our art is, by the way? Just for the record. But anyway, so you see how that's showing up, right? You know, like you're just seeing she's showing up to me as slimmer, you know, than I like to draw. You know, I like to draw the women with very voluptuous hips, because it's inspired by my mother, who has a pear-shaped body, a very unique pear-shaped body. And she was never happy with her body or her image, because, you know, it was the 80s, and if you didn't have a Barbie, tall, skinny, thin body, you know, it's just these images from the past, the Barbie thing. Me being a toy designer, by the way, you know, being a part, interesting how it all these synchronicities. But anyways, I'm trying to make her slimmer, not because, but, you know, she's going to come out a little bit more voluptuous if I paint her, just because that's, you know, and then I don't have enough room for her entire, you know, so here's her kneecap, you know, and then just, you know, the femur, you know, the hip bone here. You know, this elliptic right here. This would be her other hip socket, hip bone, you know. And so just understanding, like, just that anatomy, the basic anatomy, and how that shows up. Like, that's you know, the most valuable part, and that's like being a professional artist or taking art seriously, is being able to paint, know the anatomy, because you're doing live figure art practice. You know, you're getting your figure art classes and your practice in, and, you know, these are professional models who who pose for exorbitantly long amounts of hours and know exactly what the artist needs, and they're extremely professional, and they have, you know, tons of experience and stuff like that. You know, understanding the ways of the artist and what the artist, you know, the figure artist needs in order to capture the essence, especially, you know, younger, because back in the old days, think about it, you know, there was no photography, so the sitter, you know, if you wanted to get your painting done like in this portrait museum in London, you know, if you wanted to get, see how I'm drawing her boob, do you guys want a close-up? Anyway, I'm doing it kind of far away. You just kind of see the whole thing, how it comes together from afar. You know, I'm not going to give her a pop surrealist face, you guys, because she told me she doesn't want that kind of a face. No, she doesn't want that face. She's got long features. She's going to make me paint her so. And so, you know, a really good tip for what's the next step after this, right? It's going to be clear gesso. It's so nice. This is a very easy technique, you guys. Like, it's a lifesaver, because that, like, if you don't want to just paint everything straight on canvas without any type of drawing or underlayers, everyone's got their own ways, you guys, but this is a very simple and easy way, right? Like, there's a few ways I do it. Like, if I'm using charcoal, this is bad for your health though. If I'm using charcoal and a lot of powders and Conte powders on canvas, and I can't put a stiff brush, a clear gesso onto it without smearing the whole image away, I'll use something like this, you guys. But put a mask on, make sure nobody who's pregnant is around, make sure you're not stressed out and freaking out about getting into some kind of a art show at a certain time and a certain date and stuff, and you're just on the wire. I know how it can be. Don't let that fuck you up, okay, you guys? Like, don't, because this stuff is toxic, you know? And I know plenty of people in the toy business over the years that have died of cancer because of all the chemicals and just stressing out about this shit, you know? It's not worth it. So try to be as non-toxic as possible. This is the clear gesso, you know? This is like what it looks like. It looks a lot like what the clear, I have it here somewhere, you know, your clear medium, you know, your acrylic gel medium, like Mod Podge or any of those kind of acrylic bases that dry. But it's a clear gesso, and it's for any painting, right? It's an underpainting, so you're looking at it from that. All right, well, I hope you like this. This is a 14-minute long video. I'm probably going to chop it up. And I think I'm going to do more of these and keep in touch with you guys. Sure you noticed I put my Instagram on private, so it'll be like that for a while, but I do want to start posting more, and let's see how this works out.